Hi, I'm Brady. Welcome or welcome back, whichever applies to you here. And seems like these are the trend nowadays. So lately my audio has been echoey in my office, so I'm trying something new. I guess you could say it's very Danny Gevirtz or Lewis Potts or maybe Sam Newton of me. Whoever's doing it, well, I guess I am too. Anyway, lighting in small spaces. They go together like peanut butter and tuna fish sandwiches. They just don't. It's difficult. It's hard. Nobody likes it. But I want to talk about in this video, some methods that I go about when it comes to lighting in a small space. I mean, it's hard. You can't hide stands. Stuff gets in the way. Light bounces everywhere, so it becomes very, very difficult very, very fast. And even in these examples that I'm going to show you a little bit down the line, I definitely struggled because it's hard, it's tricky, and that's why I am sharing some of these methods with you. Now, these are not all of the methods of lighting in a small space. Who's that? Jeez Louise, my light fell. I thought someone was breaking in. Now, these are not all of the methods that are out there in the world to use when it comes to lighting in a small space. So if you have one that is not in this video, please leave a comment down below so all of us can see and learn. Diving into the first method that I want to talk about is lighting from outside. So say you're in a very small scene, but you have windows and outdoor access to these windows. The first scene you see here is Kaya at a sink and just washing some dishes and whatnot. And we've got this beautiful soft light coming in from the outside. Now, there was no room to put anything above. We had low ceilings. There was no room to really shape anything around her because we were shooting into the kitchen. So I was like, well, the only way that we could light this is from outdoors. So what I did in this particular scene is I took a sheet of half-grid diffusion and I just gaff taped it up to the window outdoors. Now, that just acts as a layer of diffusion and just giving us this very soft kind of daylight white. And then behind that, I took an Amaran F22C and I just put on the softbox and just blasted that in to this layer of diffusion. So essentially it's double diffusing us. And now this whole window that was probably, 6 feet by 4 feet or something along those lines, it's gonna be just a large softbox coming through this window. So that is giving us this very, very nice soft source coming from the outside as Kaya is at the sink. So that is one option to work with, which is lighting from the outdoors. Especially keep in mind if you have some windows and kind of block your subject and place them in a way that the light would look pleasing on them relative to this kind of window softbox that we've created. So now, after this scene, we've got coming over to the refrigerator. So there's another option to work with here, and that's what I want to dive into next. And that is lighting with a spotlight and bouncing that off of a wall or off of diffusion and just shaping the spotlight to be the size that you need. And you might think hard light, spotlight, those don't go well together, but the benefits of a spotlight attachment on this Aputure 600D is that you've got the blades that you can shape in this beam of light to be whatever size that you need. So because we have really low ceilings and we've got wide frame lines and stuff, we can really feather in and dial in where we want that strip of light to be, and that's going to act as our softbox. So in this particular case, I used this 600D and shot it overhead of the entire frame and bounced it off of the top corner of this white cabinet, so that way as it's coming in, it would bounce off of that and ambiently just give Kaya a nice little Rembrandt kind of wrap coming across her face as she approaches the fridge. Now you can see without the light on here, it's dark. We just have that back window light that we saw in the last example, but we're not getting much wrap around her, and we couldn't put a bounce card in there anywhere because high ceilings and just we've got really only a foot of frame line above her head and above the frame until we hit the ceiling. Essentially, we're putting in a rectangular softbox onto the wall using the 600D. So that is another option that I'll use a lot of the time because you can use those blades just to really feather in exactly the size that you need. And say a little bit of light's creeping in into the shot, well, you just take one of the blades and turn it a little bit more or close it a little bit more so that beam of light is essentially out of the frame line. Now moving forward, I want to talk about using your light source in the frame actually as an in-frame practical and kind of just putting it out in the open. So this scene that you've got with me doing my laundry, I put this Amaran T4C tube just in the frame. So it looks as if the entire scene is being lit with this workshop lights. And I just set this to 4000 Kelvin with a heavy green shift to get this fluorescent look. And then essentially, once I filled it with haze, that is the only light that I had in this scene. So it's okay to use your lights in frame kind of disguised as a practical, whether it's a tube light looking like a workshop light, or you have, you know, an actual like a desk lamp or a lamp that's going to be in the frame, and you can light using a practical. That way you don't have to hide it as much. And sometimes it's okay for lights to be blown out. Like if you're to look at the waveform, this tube is very, very blown out, but that's okay. And then when I moved in for the tight, this kind of narrow shot of me, I actually took away that T4C tube and got something that was even smaller, a T2C tube, just to have kind of on the corner on my upstage side, lighting a little bit of my side as the camera's shooting in on me. So tubes and using them as practicals are a great combination. Or if you just want to use tube lights, I've got a tube light right here lighting me, because right here, that's a wall essentially. So I can't fit a softbox back here. So using a wide tube light, I've got a 4-foot tube because it's giving this wrap around my face. You can see here coming over here onto this Rembrandt side. So essentially using tubes is a great method to really squeeze in lights, because they're only 4 feet or 2 feet wide and just very narrow. They're about this big. So oftentimes I will use tubes like now in a very narrow situation. So moving forwards from the tubes and the in-frame practicals, oftentimes you've probably seen it on my channel, the Amaran Flex lights. So it's F22Cs or F22X or F21C and X, whatever they have. I will use these all the time. Say you're in a small space, you can just gaff tape one of these to the wall, or, you know, set it up on a stand kind of tucked out of the frame, because it's not this really thick softbox. It's not 4 feet long. It's just very narrow. Even with the softbox on, it's about 2 or 3 inches. So it's a very narrow light as well. So I will use these all the time, just putting them in random areas. Sometimes I'll hang them overhead, especially with low ceilings. I threw this one shot together with Kaya in the kitchen, just with this warm light overhead. We used a boom arm with the F22 just as a little bit of a top light. And again, without it, it was pretty darn dark, just from that same window light that you saw before. And it makes it convenient when you have a really soft and narrow light that you can just squeeze into these tight areas. So again, these are not all the methods that are out in the world to use when lighting in a small space. I bet you there are zillions more that I am just not thinking of at the moment, but these are ones that I use very frequently, ones that I wanted to share with you. Again, to recap, you've got using your practicals in frame lighting, and using stuff like tubes or a house lamp or a desk lamp, and actually putting it in the frame. A lot of the times, if it just doesn't look like an actual stand and source, it's acceptable for sure, and I use that all the time. And then also lighting from the outdoors, actually lighting through a window, and sometimes I'll just put diffusion over the window and just call it a day, and you don't need to see what's outside. You can just make it a bright, nice, clean white. So I will use that technique, or shaping it with this 600D and a spotlight, or any kind of chip on board light, 120D or 300D, and a spotlight mount. This one gets tricky because you don't have as much control, because it's bouncing off of that and then just spilling everywhere in your frame. So it does get difficult to control your light when you're just bouncing off of a wall, but that is definitely a method that I'll use. And then these flex lights I use all the time. This one is more product niche or product specific, but still I love the idea of being able to gaff tape it up on a wall or somewhere right out of frame, and that just makes my life a world of a lot easier. And also, I didn't give an example, I just thought of it, bouncing off the ceiling. A lot of the times I'll just tuck a light in a corner, bounce it off the ceiling, and then you just get this kind of broad ambient light coming down from overhead. That again, as well as bouncing, you don't have as much control over it, but it's definitely a technique to boost up some ambience up in the room. So that's going to do it with this video. Again, lighting with small spaces is difficult. It's hard. It stresses me out, makes me want to pull my hair out, but we're probably going to all have to do it at some point in time. So I hope that this video helps, and if it did, tell your friends you like it and tell them about me, but you don't have to. So I will catch you on the flip side. Who says that? I'm just going to say bye now. So see you later, and I'll see you in the next video.